Hello and welcome to Sacred Warrior Space Podcast. I am Lynda Light, and this is episode 35, chapter 8 Before and After Life Defining Events. I have a brief foreword, so with only 2 episodes left in this foundational cycle of Sacred Warrior Space Podcast, I feel it's important to talk about some more personal things as examples and a testimony of sorts. In no way does this and what I reveal translate to my harboring any grudges or anger towards anyone who may have been guilty in treating me poorly in the last 8 years or so. In fact, I take personal responsibility for all of it. I have taught and stand by living the golden rule, and this includes treating others the way you want to be treated, as well as not treating others the way you don't want to be treated. Therefore, I am truly and sincerely grateful for all those people who have taught me exactly how to not behave. I value you as teachers and lesson givers, for how else would I know these experiences so deeply otherwise? So I thank you from my heart for all of your hard knocks lessons. Now, life-defining events. For the last quarter century or more, I've stood for world peace, meaning I've been actively trying to do something about it. In the beginning of the new millennium, I first approached it from a more creative way by making various teach peace designs and slogans, putting on clothing, bags, bumper stickers, and a huge variety of other items. I've built and maintained websites since the early public internet days in the 90s. The more resistance I surprisingly felt, the more I continued to educate myself, as I did in the mid to the last half of the 1990s. Why would anybody be opposed to world peace? It never made sense to me why anybody would oppose living in harmony and peace. The more educated I got, the more idealistic perspectives became solidified as belief structures through my living experiences in direct opposition to what the machine expected me to become. Just call me divergent if you want. And so the more action-oriented period of my adult life ensued. It's fairly logical that my next period of time was enveloped with the physical actions of getting involved in politics, not realizing, of course, just how rotten to the core it was. I was thinking and taking actions more from the idealistic point of view, that perhaps we actually could change the system from within if there was enough of us all united for the greater good of all, etc., etc., etc. I walked my talk and I did my homework and I campaigned while supporting the candidates that I believed would help make the changes that supported we the people, from the presidential election all the way down to our local and community elections for the sheriff's office and the county council elections during those very informative years. This period of time and experiences taught me a lot in my 30s, followed by more and more education in general across the board, from formal to informal. I mention these things to bring about the point that you may think you know someone, but until you've walked a mile in their shoes, I promise you, you don't know them. Remember to judge not and stop throwing those proverbial stones or rocks at people, the name calling, It's not your job to tell or expect anyone else to follow what you think is the right path. The paths to the dual events of the procession of the equinoxes and subsequent long-awaited ascension quantum leap of humanity, it's not a one-size-fits-all path. In fact, every path is unique and customized for your greatest potential of personal growth, while you still have the veil of corrupted frequencies masking what your soul already knows. Okay, with all that being said, let's get to the deeper, more intense stuff. Our reality before the shift. Governments and religions are only 2 great examples of slave control systems. If you don't understand that yet, then perhaps you're either reading the wrong article or listening to the wrong podcast. Better yet, you're probably exactly where you need to be, wink, wink. Please don't confuse religion with spirituality. That's where a lot of people get stuck and can't seem to open their hearts and realign their thinking minds, literally deprogramming themselves beyond what was handed to them and told to them all throughout their lives by social conditioning, social programming, and indoctrinations, which were all set up as mind-controlling systems of slavery and manipulation through your beliefs. I won't get into all the frequency tech being used on the people and the experiments our governments performed in order to hijack any systems that's perceived as a threat to their power structures and systems. Don't you have the right to figure out what your own beliefs are and not be expected to simply believe something simply because you're told that it's true, but rather find the truth and, more importantly, experience the truth for yourself? Okay, I digress. In the former religion, you are cultivated to believe something you are told. Belief systems in place, dogmas, doctrines, and covenants, etc., that are passed down to you from one generation to the next. Some will try to shame you into believing as you are told, using groupthink and other cultish behaviors to get you to conform and to help others hear what you tell them is true, or else you somehow don't belong, or you're not doing the work their God wants you to do. Can you see it yet? Which God are you actually serving? Some outside God that you're told about as a child, or the living God who dwelleth inside and whose spirit of which is one with you? The living word manifests through you and your speech. Have a think on that one later, perhaps. They've used psychological tactics of manipulation using guilt, shame, and fear. Some religions will actually punish you if you stray. Some absolutely do preach violence and superiority of genders, forgetting the basic principle of yin-yang, while others say their way is the only way. I won't even get into the pure greed and abuses committed in the name of religious beliefs over centuries past. The latter, spirituality, is the actual personal experience of knowing and walking with your spirit within your human body. It's the maturity of the ego, finally understanding its originally intended role, and that it's not supposed to really be in charge, followed by the humbled act of the ego personality inviting your Holy Spirit and into your physical body to come together with who you perceive as you, the ego personality. So you can experience both the ordinary and the non-ordinary experiences while in your human vessel at the same time. A lot of people do this in the name of Jesus. They invite Jesus into their hearts, Jesus the Christ. And Jesus taught us that the Christ in him is the Christ in you and me, and we're all brothers and sisters. So we are all the Christ. So when you're inviting your Holy Spirit in, you can do it in his name, but your Holy Spirit dwelleth within. You are that which you are inviting in already. It's a personal experience. It requires no religious dogma in order for you to know and personally experience God from your soul, in you, as you. It's a oneness you know, and when you know, you know. Personally, Jesus the Christ is how I found my way out of religion altogether. That's another story for another day. However, it's important to note that his teachings were more sacred than the church will ever tell you. Do you really think the Catholic and Christian churches got so rich and powerful by teaching the truth of Jesus? Take the programs passed down to you and think about why you think he was murdered. And why do you think Mary Magdalene was smeared so badly? Those teachings were considered very dangerous to the powers that be at that time, because the people knew the truth when they heard it spoken from a love frequency. They could physically feel it. If everyone started meditating and using their personal energy fields of sacred geometry connected to the grid systems, this inverted grid system would collapse immediately. The controllers don't want that now, do they? To each their own. If I were to simplify my personal life and break it down into only two parts, It's very clear. Before my firstborn son died when he was 30 and after. It's actually a no-brainer. Everything changes when you lose a child. It's the other club that nobody wants to be in. It's not about the religious and spiritual awakening parts for me, as some may have guessed, because my spiritual experiences have been true all my life. I was always divergent from the religious programs, and I was never alone without my guiding spirit waiting patiently for my ego to grow up, so to speak. I'm the one who didn't always listen, though. Did any of us, actually? My soul was tending to my ego personality as its very own garden of light, like a parent does for their child. And every child gets to make their own adult decisions at some point. I call this a divine choice point. You either go back on a loop of learning or you get on the spiral up. And the spiral up requires you to lighten your load. As part of my healing, I was guided to start sharing the process on my YouTube channel around 9 to 10 months after my son died. The videos were spiritual slam poetry initially, and that enabled me to begin using my voice verbally and not just from behind a keyboard. Now I was showing up visually and authentically, sharing my pain as part of my healing and therapeutic processes. Like I said, it was my process of healing. My initial growth rate was unbelievable to me. I was stunned at the support that I received immediately, and it continued to grow at what felt like accelerated rates. So I started to educate myself on monetization and set some goals for this thing that was just taking off. It gave me some hope for something to believe in again. I was trying to make sense of my life after the rug was pulled out without any warnings or signs, and I did indeed begin to feel hopeful again. The support I received helped me see that I could actually use my pain to help others while I healed through this horrible trauma. It was beautiful and quite astonishing to live through, but not all was peaches and roses. Not everyone, most of my old circle, could understand. And how could they? Before this most personal, life-defining event, I was no stranger to writing. I was teaching and guiding through my spiritual articles, and my blog posts were being picked up by much larger groups who made them more public. I knew that I was contributing to the greater cause of world peace through personal spiritual empowerment and development. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, that all came to a complete stop on March 23rd, 2008, 2018, which is just less than 2 months before Uranus entered Taurus, for those who understand, when my son James died and my world turned completely black and white instantly. When the initial period of mourning should have been settling in or calming down a little, I got hit with a second gut punch only 11 days after he died and after his funeral service, when I found out more details surrounding the night that he died that had been deliberately held back from me. 11 days. I'm not going to lie, I was so angry. I wanted to die too. I never felt this kind of anger in my life, nor do I ever want to feel it again. It's raw, energetic fuel. And if that existed, then so too does its opposing force. And that is a master key right there. And that is what I began seeking. To learn this crucial balancing act by way of living and experiencing it for myself. So the unconditional love energy fuel would be crystal clear and known to me. I didn't know how to handle my soul feeling the ripping apart of itself inside my heart. And the hole was massive. I could hear myself screaming inside, but couldn't vocalize it outward other than to cry and ask redundant questions. Sometime after, I stepped into forgiveness because that's something I knew would help the healing of my soul. But I was initially just going through the motions. I still had to deal with the actual forgiveness parts through the many and quite necessary stages of grief for the sudden and traumatic loss of an adult child. This was about survival in that now time. I made it a mission to find the truth, and the more I dug, the more blocks I got, and the angrier I became. It did get to the point that I needed to stop because I would wind up completely going off the edge of some inner cliff that I would never be able to come back from. And I was starting to think that that was okay. The suicide demons, seemingly within and actually without, were very real and eventually introduced themselves to me when I started identifying them as such. I knew it was time to get myself focused on my work again. I knew this would help me. I had to process this most heartbreaking pain and trauma, or I wouldn't be able to continue living at all. For me, it was either sink or swim. In all honesty, God, or my soul, must have thrown me a life vest so I could float a while, because I was starting to accept that I was going under, and I was becoming more and more okay with that. Nobody around me knew this, or how bad it actually was, because I sensed when other people didn't have what I needed to feel comforted when I needed them the most. As I've often said, you cannot give that which you do not have. And that is to blame nobody. It just is what it is. Instead, it felt like I was bothering others, or that I somehow was a burden, because I would start crying when my son James's name would come up, or I would tear up and when I talked about him. I could actually hear and feel the thoughts like, oh, there she goes again, or poor me, or maybe she should just stop talking about him, or oh, the victim card again. Something to that effect. I could feel that they thought I was attention seeking, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. It's also possible, since we are all united and just don't see it here, that I was projecting what I thought onto them, because I had no idea how to save myself from this extreme internal pain. Even with all my spiritual development and personal experiences up until that time, I actually wanted help. I needed comfort and unconditional love, the very same kind of love and support I was giving to others so freely. I had to learn this really hard lesson, more than I'd like to admit. Other people just wanted me to go back to being who I was, or they expected me to just forget it and move on the way they expected me to, or the way it made them feel comfortable, perhaps. But that was utterly impossible, because when you lose a child, your child dies, you forever lose a piece of yourself, too, which leaves one of the biggest scars you can ever have in this life. Was I actually receiving those thoughts as projected from others, or was it my own projections? Don't know. Perhaps it was a combination of both. What I felt was real to me, and that's how I felt at that time. When physically seeing eyes roll slightly with micro facial expressions that betrayed them unbeknownst to them, and all the accompanying body language that tries to shut you down when something uncomfortable typically comes up. So yeah, the energetic signals were present, unbeknownst to many people, sending out signals. They send out signals all the time by way of uncontrolled minds and not knowing how to use telepathic abilities. This is what showed me how little actual support I had in general. I didn't know anyone close to me that had lost an adult child that could help guide and validate me through this process. It felt like I was cast into the role of needing to be a strong pillar for my other children and myself too, or at the very least, a living example. I see now that I cast myself into that role because I already had been living the example by walking my talk of spiritual integrity and authenticity. I actively practiced what I preached, so I needed to be in that role, I suppose, or I wouldn't have been able to heal the way I needed, and also recognize that my healing wasn't supposed to look the way anyone else thought it should. I also refused to share my deepest feelings with anyone who showed me by their actions that they weren't really there for me. These are the same people who are never really present for you when you need them the most. I had to be brave and reach out to people during that time, and I did. It didn't take too long for people to begin fading away or only checking in very occasionally. Some left my life for good, and that's quite okay. One thing I have little patience for is fakeness. Some would reach out, and I just wasn't able to share that part of me. But most started fading away and not really understanding what I was going through. How could they? I had some multidimensional and spiritual healing experiences that greatly helped heal me. I've written in much greater detail about those in previous articles. When I started uploading videos to my channel and saw that incredible growth during my first year, it felt like the more I began to find my voice and incorporate some teachings, guidance, and insights authentically, even with all my filters and pain and raw traumas, flaws, imperfections, the more growth I saw. It felt like I was doing something important again, at least from my little corner of the world. My life jacket turned out to be the community and support system I was building as God expressed through me as my personal spirit and soul. It was born out of necessity and was heavily tested when I again would need my community and soul tribe in real life between the spring equinox and summer solstice of 2021, when I was homeless for 4 months, getting evicted during the worldwide pandemic and shutdown. It would have been 5 months, but my mother let me stay with her during the entire month of February, and I was so grateful I didn't have to freeze in a tent when not couch surfing with my community in various states across the country. I am so grateful for the entire experience, even the super scary parts, which were abundant. I chose to travel across the country to Mount Shasta to more properly honor my son in a way that felt more spiritual and connected to his soul, rather than taking up a temporary residence at a shelter. And more importantly, to overwrite the funeral service built on lies for those who made those decisions about his death. So I took the word homeless out of the vocabulary, and that enabled me my personal empowerment over my healing process, something that most around me couldn't understand, with the exception of only a very few who knew instinctively that I needed to go. It was 3 years after James died, and those house hopping, car and tent living experiences provided more healing than it ever would if I had just stayed local. I didn't even think I would be returning, but that's another story as well. I gave up, I gifted, donated, or sold just about everything I owned when I went on this sojourn across the country. I also handed out copies of my first book and offered gifts to anyone that hosted me. These were spiritual tools and items I had collected throughout my life. I kept a basket in my car and I offered these treasures along the way. It was super healing in ways I could not have expected. This purge process really hurt, especially my beautiful library of spiritual books I spent my entire adult life building. Literally everything I spent my life building, I was then giving away. Looking back now, though, I don't regret any of it. I suppose I'm just remembering certain things one last time so it can be released for good and shared to be helpful, hopefully. Like when people let me down. I suppose they just didn't know what I didn't communicate clearly enough. Or they weren't supposed to know how to handle my pain. It was mine, after all. You live and you learn, right? One thing I am sure about, and I've taught my children to live by as well, as the golden rule. That was all I was really hoping for, and my expectations weren't set high enough because people still do and did what they did, and I let them. Oh well. Lessons learned the hard way, I suppose. My wall was already up and in self-protection mode. I wasn't about to have people start offering their pity if they knew how bad I was hurting. There's a few people in my family who are free thinkers and can have those very interesting and deep, meaningful conversations. Just a handful. And I love when we get to converse about such meaningful topics. Sometimes surface attention only while interacting is required. But the rivers run deep in truth. And truth is why I am here and on a mission. Perhaps I'm being very blunt. The truth can and often does hurt when you don't see it coming. And sometimes you need the truth so you can wipe that mirror down and take a very good, long, hard, clean, and fresh look at yourself. I did, and I still do, every day. I wouldn't have found what I needed within myself for both healing and empowerment if this all didn't happen exactly how it unfolded. You see, You absolutely can alchemize the bad stuff inside you into the good stuff. You don't have to hang on to the bad stuff for your entire life. No. And you certainly don't have to hold on to stuff that doesn't belong to you, including mind programs forced on you simply from your upbringing and social constructs. I did an entire podcast about that topic when I learned to let the stuff of other people go, especially projected expectations. It's available for free in my Ascension Maps work in one of the later sacred spaces. What saved me in my work? The uploads for my YouTube channel began in February 2019, and a year later, we all know what happened that brought the entire world to a screeching halt. We won't get into any of that now, except to say that when I was talking about something I guess I wasn't supposed to say at that time, when I spoke truth, we all know now how that works for the little channels. I got slammed down real fast. The censorship was real. My growth stopped immediately, about a year and some change after uploading my first videos. I was shadow banned across social media, sometimes attacked or raided by armies of bots when I would host a live show. I got deplatformed. I was unable to monetize. Content was pulled for saying the truth about what was really going on. And even some of my earlier slam poetry was taken down because they mentioned some inconvenient truths about the poisons and metals and vaccinations and pedophiles hurting children and twisting the truth into fear propaganda, etc., which we all are finally now learning, hopefully, is absolutely true. What's that they say about when you're right over the target? Yeah, true story. Since geopolitics wasn't really my genre for teaching, I chose to self-censor my topics and just keep doing the spiritual work. I didn't want to lose my channel and the community and support system I had built. I continued to build my work, stay on mission, and I helped some other YouTubers grow their channels and collabed with the spiritual tribe on certain projects I was guided to create and host. However, once you're on that list, it's really challenging to dance around anything truthful that's not supposed to be out in the public domain just yet. And it's discouraging to try to keep building when you're literally sitting in a frozen algorithm. Some of my old content from years ago kept getting hit whenever YouTube did an algorithm checkup and sweep on my channel. It was crazy. I decided to find a platform to host my banned videos from YouTube, and Rumble was the only one I found that let me keep this content up without taking it down. So I decided to let Rumble host my spiritual podcast as well. By the way, if you're hearing this on YouTube and it still gets censored or taken down later, it'll be on Rumble. I'm simulcasting right now. Rumble channel is Lynda Light, 2 words, just like you see down here. When I did a social media and tech detox in the spring of 2023, I also decided to go into a semi-retirement of sorts. I had enough with fake friendships and betrayals from people that only cared about using me. Most spiritual people I worked with were not like this. Nevertheless, they were there. So I decided to clean house again and set all my patrons free. I was going to walk my talk and take money completely out of the equation. I framed it so that I was choosing not to do any work over there that required commitments, but it was much deeper than just a pullback on work commitments. Once I made that decision, it felt great, even though I was losing money, because I was consciously choosing it. So why else would somebody else choose to cut off incoming money? That's another deeper story, which involves cutting off all addictions and toxicity from my life, including chasing money. It was a deeper program that I didn't even realize was running way down below. I had to actively purge it, and that included letting some income go for that time period. There's a lot more to it, but again, that's another story for another time, perhaps. My hiatus was more of a self-sacrificing survival mode, so I could become the best version of myself possible. And that also meant as little interaction with others that hurt me as possible. I had to disentangle my energy field from everyone else once it had gotten polluted. I have a Pisces moon and a North Node at 29 degrees Pisces, if that tells you anything. I had to go all in, and this included purging and giving up anything that I perceived to need. Other forms of addictions or bad habits included social media, sugar, smokes, alcohol, chasing money, etc. Some addictions I kicked years ago, And some others were not actually addictions, but things I would partake in more socially, like drinking alcohol. My purge gave me the ability to see that it's okay not to be perfect, but it's very okay to strive to be the best you that you can be. Everything in moderation is a great lesson to live by, so long as you're not addicted to anything or anyone. It's not my intention to trigger you if you're still addicted to something, so I do sincerely hope that you can find the inspiration and the strength to work through your own personal purges now. If I can do it, so can you. Over the last few years and during my hiatus, purge, and purification process, I've grown into someone I actually love. I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I respect myself much more than I ever did. I am a person of great integrity, and I have always been. I stand on my word and I walk my talk. I've walked my talk as long as I can remember. I've always consciously tried to be this version of myself, but I would fail through self-sabotage and lack of self-respect for not being perfect constantly. I also had a huge fear of success, and that was a big one playing in the background too. I hadn't earned the master key of balance in all things quite yet. I have certain gifts and abilities, some of which allow me to sense and speak truth. Rather bluntly, I know, but I make no apologies for that anymore. And I have developed wisdom from knowledge and experiences in the multidimensional and galactic realms. Some experiences come through meditations, some in dream time, some while sun gazing or bathing, some while in the nature, a lot while creating and writing, some in the shower, and some while even driving or just being physically alone. Just because I have these gifts available, it doesn't mean I always get it right. We're still in a world condition that pulses at a frequency that was hijacked, creating a false illusion through the grid networks. This false illusion creates a reality based on inversions. It's distorted and perverted. But that's another story you'll start hearing about more and more from many others now, if you're not already awake and aware of it. It's a collective delusion that many are finally waking up from, which gives us all hope. We were hijacked a long time ago. However, the procession of the equinoxes allows for an exit of the false system and matrix, this time without a total destruction of our planet by divine decree. We're now in the very beginning season of the Satya Yuga, or the Krita Yuga, also known as the Golden Age. Why haven't we experienced the event and shift yet? Simple. We got bonus time to awaken as many people as possible. Simple. The lesson in life is how to truly love, beginning with yourself. Those other beings in power don't want to let you go and will fight until the end. Fear not. The crystalline grid system and networks will all pulse correctly again, and the entire planet will experience the shift of the ages and live through it. Not everyone incarnated now will, obviously. As it's been said, the ending is not for everyone. The truth of the golden ticket doesn't just win one person an endless supply of sugar, sweets, and chocolates, but it's for everyone incarnated and alive when the grids are reversed, flipped, and then the pulse of the correct frequency is broadcast. All the bodhisattvas are incarnated for this one moment, and they so deserve this. Call it a pole shift, call it the event, call it the procession of the equinoxes, call it divine intervention. Matters not at this point. It's nigh, and it's inevitable. Nothing can stop it now. Just remember to play well in the grand sandbox together. Stop the name calling and the self-righteousness, thinking your way is the only way. Everyone on this planet has been lied to, and your religion is no exception. So it would greatly benefit you to start with the fact that you've been deceived too. What would Jesus do right now? I can tell you from my experience, he would meditate quietly, away from the chaos, and focus on his connection to God through his heart center. It's really about the energetics here, the realms and worlds you can't see with your physical eyes, but you will. Perhaps consider the second coming of Christ is the Christ in you and me. When you know, you know. We are Christ. We are the earth grids. We are love. We are light. We are one, and we are vindicated in truth. It's our time now, and we've waited long enough. The daughters of the sun have been healed and are rising now. I sincerely hope you find your truth, because these are the most challenging times for all. You will very soon be measuring these times as before and after. For no thing and no being will ever be the same once the shift happens. Focus on the energy of the higher frequencies and heaven on earth already within you. The secret door is within your heart. Keep your focus on your inner self and just go through the motions that you must on the outside while you quietly increase your divine frequencies on the inside. Purge what you need to now, purify yourselves and withdraw your energy from toxic situations and people, and humble yourselves for your greatest and most accelerated growth ever possible. Stay centered and meditate, and please stop the name calling. It's beneath you now. Those who stay in that frequency can be seen very, very clearly. But that doesn't mean you need to go along to get along anymore. Let them. Just let them. Next week, I won't be live, but I will be back for a brand new beginning to this podcast in 2 weeks, May 22nd. I hope to see you all then. May Christ return to earth through us now. May peace prevail on our planet now. May all beings live in peace and the light of our one true divine source of all. I love you all. I am Lynda Light.